That's
Yeah, that's terrific. All right. Are we recording this now? Okay. So just keep going. Just say that all over again.
3, 2, 1.
I have a question of when I began college years ago, I've learned that when you go to college, you learn how to think. And a lot of the materials in the book are there to help you, but the main focus was for you to learn how to think for yourself. And my question is, do you think this is true as to being a professor, if this is really what is happening? That is my question.
Besides the student learning outcomes, there are students typically come to class, they say, what's expected of me? What's required in this class? What are the reading assignments? What is attendance policy? Whatever. There's really two requirements in all of my classes. Doesn't matter the subject matter. One is to think globally, which is to think beyond just your immediate environment. Think about how what you're doing affects other people. And the other one is to participate. And I think Gerald's question gets right to the heart of that issue. Those two things, if you're not participating and you're not thinking globally, then you're really not opening your thought process up to how the environment around you is affecting you and other people and how you can take actions to have a positive impact on the rest of society, your classmates, the society you live in. And I think Gerald makes a great point that the purpose of education is to help you learn how to think. Not memorize, but think. Example, in class yesterday when we were doing the video on the HR management issue, there's 350 some pages in the textbook on HR management techniques. The issue is that if you're confronted today with an example, card check, which is a new legislation on unionization, the textbook doesn't cover that because the textbook was written several years ago. But if you would learn how to think and how to research on the internet and how to stay current with what's going on, you're going to be able to process that better so that if you're confronted in your day-to-day work is, do I support card check, do I not support card check, you'll be able to think through that process. And that's really what we're trying to do. The details, it's always helpful to know which side of the batter's box to be standing in when a guy's pitching to you. So you need to know some basic details of the subject matter. But as important, in many cases more important, is how do you think about things? How do you process information? And I certainly would prefer you to think more globally. In other words, think beyond your immediate environment. One of the things I love about Long Beach City College is student mix is a diversity. And when you have this many hours with people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, it gives us the opportunity to talk in class about that, and people start to get more comfortable with it. And of course, we have a good time with the difference between the Irish and the Italians, don't we, Ryan? One of us has food and one does not. Let me rephrase that. One of us has edible food and one does not. Right. Right. Exactly. And so we try to address these issues in a comfortable way so that it's okay to talk about differences, cultural differences. It's okay to talk about educational difference. It's okay to talk about socioeconomic differences. The important thing is we talk about it in a respectful fashion so that people can learn how to handle that. Jessica, what do you want to know? You don't have to ask the question, but what do you want to know? Why don't I wear socks, right? Yeah. It's an ethnicity issue. Anybody else have a question? Great question, Gerald, by the way.
Do you and the Fonz have anything in
No.
common?
No.
Do you own a pair of socks?
I do. I do own socks.
Being Italian, have you ever killed anybody?
Wait. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. Here, whisper in my ear. Whisper in my ear. You have to whisper in my ear. I'm not allowed to answer that question.
Don't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
say anything until we're back into the hotel room. You can say anything you want in the privacy of yourself.
Regrets.
Kill any.
Do you have a few?
Do I have any regrets?
Have any whatsoever.
Personal regrets or about this class?
Oh,
Well,
I
the
really shouldn't have eaten that cheesecake last night.
yeah. Well, that's a great question. Let me rephrase your question, Lance, this way. I try to, one of the reasons I survey the students at the beginning and at the end of every class is I try to improve every class I do. I try to do better the next class, and my interest is in hearing what the students say, the ones that I'm interfacing with, to try to make the environment for the next class more valuable for their time, because they're spending time in class. I want to make that as valuable as I possibly can while meeting the academic requirements that the school has. And I think the modalities I'm most comfortable with is not establishing a protocol for the class until I've had a chance to meet the class and get some sense for what their interests are, and then adjusting the material and how I deliver the material around that particular class, that particular group of people. I think I still struggle to some degree with those students that are more traditional academic that like things done serially, and we typically don't operate in a serial fashion. One of the feedbacks I get is students never know what we're going to talk about when they come to class, and I agree with that. Because we're usually working off of events. As an example, when the Maersk, Alabama situation came up with that hostage situation, it's a great example of leadership. I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on where we were at on the section. I thought that was a great thing for us to talk about. Or when the president got elected, I thought that was a great thing to talk about because people can relate to it. I'm still working on developing enough structure so that those students that like structure don't feel as uncomfortable. I'm still working on that one.
so you consider your managing your professorship as a learning organization?
Absolutely. This comes from my experience in the business world, is what we do today in our business is different than 10 years ago because customers have different requirements, and that's part of the adjustment process. My measure to me is I need to meet the standard of the school on your understanding of the student learning outcomes, and then my personal measure of my own performance is I want every student to feel more valued at the end of the semester, just about themselves personally and their future, than they did when they came in. And I'd like to see the attendance. And one of the measures of how well I'm performing is attendance. Because your students aren't required to come to every class. I mean, there's some requirements and some consequences. And I spend a lot of time focusing on that, trying to come up with ways to make it rewarding for students to come to class. Because if they're here, we can exchange information. If they're not here, it's a little tougher to. I mean, it's possible. I suspect we could, do it subconsciously or whatever.
Best interest to make it
You know.
class, though.
And why is it in your best interest to make it in class? Chelsea's not. Chelsea doesn't want. That's where all the points are, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a great. Chelsea asked the question or made the point, even though she doesn't want her voice on this, that it's in your best interest. Well, there's two reasons to come to class. One is your personal knowledge. The other, in what you learn from your other classmates. The other thing is a lot of points. We generate a lot of random points are earned in certain classes. A great example is this whole idea of the class interviewing me and us videoing it and offering to prospective students was Elisa's idea here last week. And it's such a great idea that everybody that was in class that day got 50 points. And every time a student or anybody in class really demonstrates a good understanding of what it is we're trying to do, whatever it happens to be, anybody in class benefits because we're trying to develop this class dependence on each other. And so it's, it affects your grade by coming to class.
On top of that, since we're not going from the textbook, it's almost essential to get something from the class and prepare for the exams. You need to be able to
it's certainly helpful. You could, Lance's comment was, because we don't necessarily follow the textbook, you could pass my exams by reading the textbook and never come into class. You could. You wouldn't develop the subtleties of what we're talking about by just reading the textbook. Our preference, you develop a lot more insight into why we're talking about things, because as Lance pointed out earlier, some of my answers are many times longer than the question is, right? And the hope is that it gives you some way of relating to that question when it comes up later, a year from now, 6 months from now. You go, well, wait a second. I think we talked about this situation. And we try to teach around situations that people can relate to.
If there was one reason, Professor Mucci, one reason at all that you would have students come to this class, what would you say that reason would be?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, yeah, you are, actually. I think I'm still learning why students choose to go to certain classes, okay? My understanding from the surveys of this class initially is most people came here because they wanted to get some experience in leadership. Some people came because it was part of their academic package that, they're required to take. In either case, I still try to make it a rewarding experience for them because you all end up in leadership positions or follower positions. One of the best ways of learning how to be a follower, because most people are followers, not leaders, is to be a leader. Probably the best example I can give you is years ago when I was coaching youth sports, I had several players on my team whose fathers were professional coaches. Basketball coaches, baseball coaches. One of them was a major league manager. And he would come in the dugout, the fathers would come in the dugout, and I would learn from them how to be a good assistant coach, even though I was the head coach, how they would make suggestions in a way that wasn't really changing the modality of what I believed our team should be doing. And I think by being in leadership positions, you then learn how to be a good follower as well, because you'll have a better appreciation for somebody who is in a leadership position.
Great answer.
Thank you, Frederick.
Any other questions, anybody?
No? We're done?
Anybody?